we're all super excited about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and there's still so many roster spots we don't know about yet. Yes, we have gotten a decent amount, but there is a lot that we don't know. So I wanted to do my best to try to predict the roster and kind of make a wish list of what characters I'd like to see and what characters I wouldn't like to see. And as we go along and we run out of room, I may change characters that I feel don't deserve to make it over others, but that's just how it's going to go. By the way, this most likely will be pretty biased and wrong when the actual, game comes out and we see what the roster looks like. But we're just having some fun, so let me know in the comments who you'd like to see in the game, or if I missed somebody, because this is a long selection process. So, firstly, let's start off with the OG Dragon Ball characters, and obviously we have to have Kid Goku. In my opinion, the Great Ape Kid Goku transformation deserves a spot too. Kid Goku, like I said, is a must, and I think the Great Ape form is story relevant, so it makes sense to kind of include it, especially if we're going to go through the story all the way from the original Dragon Ball all the way to the end of Super. So that's what I'm assuming was going to happen at least. Next, we got ourselves Master Roshi and his regular and buff forms. And I'm going to be using this version of Roshi all the way from the original Dragon Ball all the way to the end of Super. And I just think that his buff form is dope. And I loved using it in the older Tenkaichi games a lot as a kid. So I hope that's in there. And I also hope that he gets, an alternative Jackie Chan attire or something like that. But I wouldn't have Jackie as his own character. Next, we have Grandpa Gohan and Mercenary Tao. Not gonna lie, I almost cried when I saw Grandpa Gohan, when Goku was, hugging his grandpa after the fight and all that. And I also, it kind of brought, emotion to me when he was in Super, when Goku was reenacting his fight with Grandpa Gohan. So I definitely think Grandpa Gohan deserves a spot. And, of course, Mercenary Tao. Mercenary Tao was probably the first thing to me that, or at least the first bad guy to me that really seemed like a threat to Goku and his friends. At least from what I remember, though. It's been a while since I've seen the original Dragon Ball, but I seem to remember Goku breezing through a lot of, the old bad guys and whatnot, until he got to Tao, and then he was kind of in danger. So I think both he and Grandpa Gohan do deserve a spot here. And lastly, for Dragon Ball, we have Demon King Piccolo, Tambourine, and Ader. Demon King Piccolo's arc was peak Dragon Ball. This was probably my favorite. He was an absolute menace, so I made sure I had to include him in there. Tambourine and Ader, they're just characters that kind of just... I've had fond memories of these people, both in the show and in Tenkaichi games in the past. So shout out to people that I wanted to include, like Kid Krillin, Nam, General Blue, Devilman, and Chi-Chi. But I'm purposely going to keep the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball GT rosters a little bit shorter so we can kind of fit a lot of the Dragon Ball Z and the Dragon Ball Super rosters, just because those rosters are, I would say, a little bit bigger. So moving on to the Dragon Ball Z characters, I'll be starting with Kid Gohan. And I'm assuming we get the Saiyan Saga version of him here, but I'm also hoping we get, some sort of alternate attire of him when he's on Planet Namek, with the Saiyan armor and the bowl cut. And I'm also going to include Gohan in his Great Ape form, since it is story relevant. If Gohan didn't turn Great Ape, Piccolo wouldn't have destroyed the moon, and his Great Ape form particularly helped defeat, or partially helped defeat Vegeta. It wasn't the sole cause of Vegeta being defeated, but it did help. Next, I'm going to include Yajirobe simply because he cut off Vegeta's tail, so I think he is important, at least for the story mode. And now most of the Z fighters are done. I think we can talk about the Saiyans and their homies. Raditz, obviously mandatory, Nappa, and the Cybermen, I think, are all characters that probably will be in the game, especially because it seems that Yamcha's already been announced. Some of these little, the character selection, it's a little bit blurry, so I'm assuming that's Yamcha. And if Yamcha's there, we got to get the legendary moment of him getting blown up. So I think that'll also be a thing. And obviously, Vegeta's already been shown to us. So moving on to the Frieza saga, I'm going to include Kui here simply because he was Vegeta's first victim. And I just remember how he decimated him. So I just decided to throw him in there. But he's definitely someone that if we start running out of spots toward the end, I'm definitely going to replace him. So next, I think Zarbon and Dodoria both deserve a spot, including Zarbon's, gigantic Hulk form. I'm also going to throw in the Ginyu Force and all of Frieza's forms as well. And moving on to the Android Saga, one of my favorite sagas of all time, just for all of the Super Saiyans that make an appearance. But ironically, that also ends up taking a lot of character slots in this game. So, give or take, but I honestly don't mind because the character roster is pretty big. So, Androids 17, 16, 19, and 20. And I know 17 has already been confirmed, but I think he looks nicer just by his sister, so I'm going to go ahead and put him in there, and then I'm going to remove his official slot, and I'm going to put a different character there. And I'm going to do what I'm going to do is I'm going to hope that for Dragon Ball Super, he has an alternate attire to kind of wear, his Dragon Ball Super gear and stuff like that. And of course, we can't forget about Mecha Frieza and King Cold. Then the guy that killed him in the future Trunks, and his Super Saiyan form with the short hair. But there's also this long hair Trunks, since his Super Saiyan form seems to already be confirmed. And we could probably throw in his buff form as well. And then after that, we can focus on Teen Gohan with both, his base form, Super Saiyan, and Super Saiyan 2. And that's obviously 100% going to be a thing. Without Teen Gohan, the story does not progress. So I hope all forms of Cell are also included. And the older games had Cell after he came back from blowing himself up as a different form. So I'm going to include that as well. So we got ourselves his original weird-looking stage, and then his medium, slightly less weird-looking stage. And then after he absorbs both of the androids, he has his perfect form. And then after he comes back from that, I guess it's... I forget the exact word for it, but it's like... No, it's... screw it. We'll move on. Shout out to Future Gohan, though. I still hope there's some space at the end to put him in. But there's a lot of characters to squeeze in. And I kind of feel really bad about putting or leaving Future Gohan out of this. Next, let's move on to the Buu Saga. Starting off, let's include Videl, Adult Gohan, along with Super Saiyan 1, 2, and his unlocked power form on top of his base form. And I'm going to be using this form of Gohan all the way from here, all the way to Super. I don't know how accurate that will be, because I know he does technically lose a lot of power moving into Super. But he does gain that power back at the same time, so I think it could work. But just let me know if I'm wrong about that in the comments. And we can't forget about the power, or the person that unlocked Gohan's power being the Supreme Kai and Kibito. If they didn't have him to, break the Z Sword, and then the old Kai wouldn't have come out, and then from the old Kai, obviously Gohan got his power unlocked. But I don't think old Kai should be a playable character, just because we don't really see him fight. So I don't think it makes sense. We should also mention Kid Goten and Kid Trunks as well as their Super Saiyan forms, as well as their fusion form, which includes base Gotenks, Super Saiyan Gotenks, and Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. I don't remember if the older games had Super Saiyan 2 Gotenks, but it just doesn't make sense to me, at least. So we'll keep it to this for now. And then I'm also going to use the Kid Goten and Kid Trunks moving forward into the Super as well. So after this, we got to talk about the bad guys. Babidi and Dabura, I think, should be added, just because Babidi was the whole reason Majin Buu happened, and Dabura was his right-hand man. And Babidi is definitely one of those characters that if I need to, I'll probably be removing him. And now, the main man himself, Majin Buu, gets some love. Majin Buu, I think based on this picture, was already announced. So that leaves Evil Buu, Super Buu, and Kid Buu. And oops, I almost forgot Vegito in both regular and Super Saiyan forms. Shout out to the Great Saiyaman, Young Oob, and Mr. Popo. As badly as I want to include them, I think older Oob in GT makes more sense, assuming I can fit him in. And as much as I wanted everyone to basically be taught the first rule of Popo's training, I think he would be a little too powerful. So, also, I think it's worth mentioning Super Buu, Gotenks, Gohan, and Piccolo absorbed. I hope Super Buu has, a technique or something where he can absorb them instead of all of them counting as separate characters, just to conserve space for now. And next, I'm going to include the non-canon Dragon Ball movie characters who I really, really hope make it. I'm just going to list them out real quick. We got Bardock, Turles, both forms of Cooler, plus Metal Cooler. Then we have OG Broly in base Super Saiyan and Legendary Super Saiyan forms. If we end up running out of space, I might come back and take them out, since we do have Super Broly, and it's already been confirmed. It just depends on space and whatnot. But there's also characters like I said earlier, Babidi, that would probably go before him, and I really don't want to take out Dragon Ball Z movie Broly just because he was a monster. He was a separate type of monster. That guy was crazy. Then we got Janemba in both forms, and Gogeta in regular and Super Saiyan. And I think the same Gogeta can be used in Super and Z, and I'll add his Super Saiyan Blue and his Super Saiyan 4 forms when we get to that part in GT and Super. And lastly, for the Dragon Ball Z movies, we have both Bojack forms, Tapion, and the Hydra Get Done. I don't even know how to pronounce that thing. You know the thing I'm talking about, the big thing Tapion was trying to fight. Shout out to people like Garlic Jr., Dr. Wheelo, Cooler's henchman, the French guy, I forget his name. And then we got Bojack's right-hand girl, but I honestly don't care about including them. I think there's more important characters. So, moving forward to GT. Now, part of me feels like GT will be DLC, since GT Goku and Vegeta weren't seen fighting each other in the trailer. But who knows, and they might just make it in, so I'll operate on the assumption that they do. I'll start off with GT Goku in base form Super Saiyan 1, 3, and 4. And I'm pretty sure Budokai Tenkaichi 3 also didn't have GT Goku as Super Saiyan 2, so we'll just keep it like that, just to save some space. Next, we have Vegeta and Gogeta, both in Super Saiyan 4. And lastly, for the good guys, I'll add Adult Oob and Teen Pan. Now, I was debating whether or not to consider Maj'Ub as a transformation. So what I'll do is I'll add the regular, he's not an adult, he's a teen, but whatever. Teen Oob, and then Maj'Ub, and then if more space is needed, I will keep Maj'Ub and I'll remove the regular Teen Oob. And for the bad guys, I'll include Baby Vegeta and Omega Shenron in all forms for both. So that's Sin Shenron, Omega Shenron, Baby Vegeta Base, Super Baby 1, Super Baby 2, and Golden Great Ape. Shout out to people like Super 17 and the rest of the dragons, namely Nova Shenron. Hopefully, if I have enough room, I can come back and add them, but it's looking like a tight fit right now. And moving on to Dragon Ball Super. This is the anime that I think I have the least experience with because I've only seen it all once. So I will apologize ahead of time if I miss some of your favorite characters. But I think I got most of them. So let's start with Dragon Ball Super's Lord Beerus and Whis. These guys, if didn't exist, the anime wouldn't launch, right? I don't know if a lot of people have Whis as a playable character, but I definitely like to see some angel action. Next, we have some Golden Frieza and Tagoma. Now, Tagoma is someone I'm definitely willing to replace if we need room, so we'll find out how that goes. And I think Vados and Champa are also worth including as well as their champion Hit. It would be nice to get all the Gods of Destruction, Angels, and Kais, but that's probably not realistic because they would take up way too many spaces, right? But next we have Goku Black in both his regular and Rosé forms, and we can't forget about Zamasu and Fuse Zamasu either. And I don't think I'll include his half purple form since I don't know if that actually counts as a transformation or just like a distortion as a result of the fusion and him putting too much effort into or too much energy. But next I'll include the super version of Future Trunks since he's listed down there. His Super Saiyan form is down there. So I think it makes sense to just continue and include. So, they could do this and they could have an alternate outfit to include his blue hair for the Z Trunks. But he does kind of have a new form known as Super Saiyan Rage, and I had to Google that because I didn't know what it was called. So I'll give him the extra slots. And next we have the Universe 6 Saiyans, starting with Kaba in his base, Super Saiyan, and Super Saiyan 2 forms. And then we have Caulifla in her base, Super Saiyan, and Super Saiyan 2 forms. And I'm going to skip her buff form just to save some space, although it's possible that makes the cut, right? Lastly, we have Kale in her base and legendary Super Saiyan forms. And of course, the fusion known as Kefla. Next, let's include Dipso and Toppo. They're most likely going to make it. I thought about including Toppo's God Aura, but ultimately I passed just to save some space, but that honestly would be interesting. Lastly, there's 2 spots left, and it makes sense to put the rest of the Danger Trio here. Well, that takes up every single official slot, but I'll need to move some people around and replace them with Ultra Instinct Goku, who for some reason was not in the trailer. So shout out to Frost. Shout out to the Universe 6 Namekians, and shout out to a lot of the other fighters in the tournament. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace Kui with Ultra Instinct Goku, I'm going to replace Tagoma with Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta, and I'm pretty sure Dragon Ball Super's Broly is missing his legendary Super Saiyan form, at least from what we've been shown so far. So I think I'll replace Tambourine with him, rather. So at this point, I'm sure you're wondering, where's the Dragon Ball superhero characters? For our very last selection phase, I'll replace those who I don't feel like deserve a spot over Dragon Ball superhero characters. Although this is another thing that I just have a feeling as you'll see. I have no proof over any of this, but I just have a weird gut feeling. So I could be wrong about that. So because I could be wrong, I'm going to go ahead and try my best to get them out there. And also, disclaimer, I watched this movie with friends, and they were messing around in the theater a lot, and I don't remember a lot of the movie, but I do remember some of the main characters that stuck out. So I'll do my best to include a lot of these important characters, but feel free to let me know where I'm wrong, because, let's be honest, I probably will be. All right, this is going to be kind of tough, so I'm going to replace Kabito with Gohan's new form, and I'm going to replace Babidi with Piccolo's new form. And I'll also replace Oob with Cell Max. And part of me wanted to add, what are they, teens now? Gohan and Trunks, but I think Goten and Trunks. I keep replacing the names. But I think for the most part, this is probably what I want because I don't want to replace too many of the other characters either. So, all right. This was a very, very stressful process, and the editing of the pictures to fit the screen took like 2 days. So please, 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 if you like my work, leave a comment, subscribe. And I'm sure I missed out on some characters, and if I did, I'm honestly sorry. My intention was not to, make anyone mad or anything. This is just my wish list of what I wanted to see, right? And if I did, feel free to correct me and let me know what you'd like to see in the comments. And who do you think will be DLC if DLC is even a thing? Let's be honest, though, it's 2024, probably will happen, right? This is PlotArmorGames signing out, and we will see you in the next video.